Hi everybody, I'm Josh and this is Dan from Premium Equipment, and we're here to talk to you about sprayers, about some key points to look over before the season starts.
So some preseason checks you want to do before starting. If your machine's been in storage for the winter, whether it's being a heated shop or in a drive shed, you just want to check and make sure there's no bird's nests or a mouse nest built up anywhere, especially near the exhaust system. It's potential for fire. You want to make sure your cooling package is blown clean, nothing's restricting the airflow. Check all of your fluids, so you're going to check your coolant, make sure it's at the max as it's cold. Check your engine oil levels, and as well check your engine air filters. Fuel filters we like to do annually. Engine oil should be done about 250 hours. And we want to also hit all the grease banks as well with grease. Make sure we don't have anything stuck that way. Then we can go underneath and I can show you some key spots that need to be greased. All right, so some key spots here to grease. We're going to have our suspension assemblies. There's 4 grease zerks here on either side. So you want to grease the suspension assemblies, make sure all the zerks are taking grease. You have your spindle assembly here. There'll be grease fittings as well on there that need to be greased. Steering cylinders as well, other spots. Just check underneath here. We don't have any oil leaks coming from the rear or front of the engine or coolant leaks. We want to make sure our airbag suspension assemblies, they tend to build up with debris under here. You want to make sure they're clean so that they don't rub or wear through on the airbag itself. Just check underneath for any signs of oil leakage. Could indicate a hub seal is going or has failed. If that's the case, it could lead to a failure of the wheel planetary hub assembly. Underneath here we have our engine drive shaft to the hydrostat unit here. There's 3 grease fittings, 1 per U-joint, and then the actual sliding part of the shaft also needs to be greased, and that's a 100-hour service interval. So we want to make sure those are done religiously. Just check underneath for any oil leaks near your hydrostatic pumps or auxiliary pump. All this can be accessed by removing crop shields if your machine's equipped, and then we can look over some of the wheel hardware and tires and make sure they're fit for the season. One thing you want to check pre-season as well, just have a look at your brake linings in here. Make sure that the actual the pads are intact. There's a fair bit of wear life left. Your rotors aren't scored, or it doesn't show any signs of heat buildup. So if we go around to the tire here, so we just want to inspect our tires here. Just check the sidewalls, check the lugs and whatnot for any big slices or cracks. There is inflation pressures listed in the owner's manual. Depending on tire size, machine configuration, boom width. So make sure they are inflated to where they are supposed to be at. Then we can check our hubs here as well. So we just want to make sure our drain's always at the bottom. It's always best to run the sprayer first, get the hubs hot, line this up with the ground, and then check it. You will need to refill it or top up with 8140 here. It's a synthetic gear lube. The smaller sprayers obviously require less, and then the 40, 45, 40, 60s use a fair bit more gear lube as well. So make sure you are using the correct lubricant as well. And then we can check the hydraulic reservoir and just make sure that you are using Torque Guard 1030, not hydraulic oil. We want to use actual 1030 Torque Guard. Is better for resisting moisture from water contaminants. So we want to make sure that we are checking the hydraulic oil level correctly. So you want to make sure that the machine is off, boom is in the cradled position, and the tread adjust is all the way in. And your oil level should coincide with what's on the sight glass. So whatever the temperature of the oil is, that oil level should be out there, which is clearly marked on the side of the reservoir. Also, some people will drop their air in the sprayer over the winter so that there's no pressure on the airbags. So we want it in the off position, and that's basically your run position. And in the on position, that's basically with no air in the bags. So one other thing we can check before starting is our tread adjust. If you're not using tread adjust, it's always recommended just to tighten the bolts up all the way in. We can tighten the bolts down to about 200 foot-pounds, and that'll keep the axle from moving at all in the actual tube. But in order to check it, we just want to make sure that we are maintaining a 3 mil gap here from side to side on both sides, minimum 3 mil. And on the bottom, we want to see a 60 thou gap between the actual axle and the axle tube and the shim. Make sure that there is a 60 thou gap. One other thing to check for is any air leaks. Sometimes we can get air leaks in the actual air actuators for the auto leveling system. So make sure that they're not leaking down. Sometimes you'll see one bag will settle more than the other. That could indicate a leak at the actual actuator or possibly in the fitting that supplies it.
All right, we'll look at the solution system and the booms now. So a couple of things on the side fill here. This is a high flow sprayer. It's got the high flow valves. The 30 series will have a similar setup. So going through these valves again, just as a refresher. This is the high flow valve. It's for the second flow meter. So this is the valve that you open at over 100 gallons a minute of flow. So that's not gallons per acre, that's gallons per minute. So that'll vary with your boom size and how fast you're driving. The one behind it is the orifice valve. It's the ball valve with a hole in the middle. This is for rates below, that works to be below 26 gallons per minute. And this is where you want to have this enclosed. And with the 4 series sprayers and 30 series, you want to make sure that when you adjust these valves, you tell it in the display where they're set, or you will mess your rates up. Also, we have the flow meter. On the Deere sprayers, that is a spinning wheel flow meter. You want to make sure that that flow meter is clean, not built up with residue. If it is dirty, you can clean up with brake clean to get it spinning properly. Also, the cal tag on the flow meter, you want to have the calibration number entered in the display for the flow meter, and it'll have, if it's high flow, you'll have flow meter 1 on the inside and flow meter 2 on the outside. So now we're underneath the sprayer looking at the solution pump. On the 4 series here, this is a high flow solution pump. So quick check, if you're worried about leaks, is look at the area where the CO is. If it is leaking, it would be leaking out of this area here. And 30 series are a smaller pump, but they will have a similar weep hole to check where it would leak. So now we're looking at the outer boom fold area. On the 4 series sprayer, they have no grease fittings on the outer boom. The only grease fittings on the boom is on the center frame lift arms. Everything else is fiber bushing. This is a wear part. These bushings do wear out. You want to check these about once a year to make sure that the pin is not wearing its way through the bushing and into the boom frame. So now we're at the back of the sprayer. We're looking at the solution system strainers. Depending on which sprayer model you have, your strainers could be at different locations. 30 series at the side. You want to check the strainers and make sure that they are clean. And depending on what rates you're running, what chemical you're running through, there is different sizes available, like a 50 mesh for spraying 28%. Also on the booms would be the nozzles. These are pretty important for spray pattern and also rate. You'll want to check the nozzles, make sure that the screens inside the nozzles aren't plugged, and also the tips, make sure those aren't plugged, make sure the spray pattern looks good. Another check would be the nozzle output. That can be checked with the spot on tool. Works great for checking the flow output of the nozzle and make sure that it's good for another season.
So just as a recap, we want to make sure that all of our fluid levels are topped up, our strainers are installed, verify the integrity of the cap, make sure all of the seals are intact and the doors are sealing properly, and always change your cap filters before the start of each season. Your fresh air filter and your recirculating filter need to be both changed. So you can always just verify your solution system by spraying water through the boom. Just unfold it in a safe area and just run your pressures as you normally would. Just to make sure that all of your nozzles are spraying evenly. If you have any other questions, please reach out to your local Premier dealer. Thank you.
Hi everybody, it's Josh here again. Now that we've done the walk around on the sprayer in the shop, we're going to jump in the cab and go through some in-screen stuff. We're going to start with the 4600 display, which would be in 2018 and newer sprayers and possibly some Haggies. And for some of the AMS stuff, it'll be the same in a Haggie as in a Deere. The rate controller stuff is a bit different because of it's in a sprayer, the way it works, so we won't go through much of that for a Haggie. So go through the setup screen here. This is where you would set up your client farm field info. So under location tab is where you put that in. Product application, operation will go to product application automatically. Because this is a simulator, it shows crop type. In the sprayer cab, it'll show the application type, so that would be broadcast or pre-emerge spraying or post-emerge spraying. Product name is where you put that in. You want to remember to change that for each different product that you spray, so your maps stay consistent. And equipment, so this is a sprayer. Click on the sprayer and you'll want to verify your offsets. They should be pre-populated and they should be correct, but you do want to verify that to make sure everything's good there. Under mechanical delay is where you will set up your on-off times. With the Zap Apply machines, leave those where they are. They are special on-off times from Deere. We'll also go through the sprayer specific stuff. So you go to the menu. This will probably be a review for most operators, but for those who are new, we'll go through everything just to make sure that you're comfortable with it. Auto prime. This is where you can prime the booms. It will spray the center sections out shorter than the outer booms. Also in this tab right in this area here would be the air purge option. Boom and nozzles. So spray mode, if you have exact apply, this is where you would set up the nozzles. One thing to remember, specific gravity with exact apply is 1.28 and 28%. These are all listed in the operator's manual. 1.0 is water. Manual setup is where you set up the nozzles, and also where you would turn pulsing on or off. There's more dear YouTube videos on how to set all this stuff up. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on exact apply specific setup. The advanced settings are here. The only thing I'll point out in this list is, scroll down to the very bottom, turn compensation. For turn compensation to work, you can turn this box off. Or to check the box for turn compensation, you have to have pulsing turned on and a Starfire receiver installed. And that'll be it for exact apply setup. And boom track, this is where you can go in and change your raise and lower responses if it's jumpy. And center frame control, what center frame control does is the first time you press the resume switch, if center frame control is turned on, it will go on and automatically keep changing as you go over the field. If center frame control is turned off, it'll find the target height the first time, and from then on it will stay stationary. Sensor target, canopy is first object it sees, ground is second object it sees, so it depends on your crop, how the crop is in the field. If you have issues with the boom track being jumpy, you can try 2 different modes. Now the simulator has caught up with us again. We'll go through the calibrations. This is in the calibrations procedures tab. So procedures, one I'll point out here is the boom maintenance mode. If you click on that, say you have an issue with the boom track sensor, you hit a tree and break one off, you can go into here to manually override the sensors and fold and unfold the booms. Under calibrations, so the first one is the boom tab. All the boom calibrations are in here. For the most part, you shouldn't have to do these every year. One you may have to do that relates to boom track again is the tilt valve calibration. If your boom track is jumpy possibly, you could recalibrate the boom valves. It does help with a lot of boom track jumpy issues. When you do a calibration, just go to the calibrate tab and follow the steps through. One thing to remember is that oil temperature needs to be 140 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter. If you do it with cold oil, it will not be an accurate calibration and you'll still have issues. All the rest are in here in case you don't want to redo them. They're pretty self-explanatory. Machine calibrations, if you're switching from floater tires to skinny tires or the other way around, a speed sensor calibration should be done to compensate for different tire radiuses. One we're missing under the machine calibration, is the auto track calibration. If you're having issues with auto track possibly not tracking how you want it to be, you can recalibrate the auto track valve. That should be in this list here as well, but it's not on the simulator. And also swapping tires, the calibration does help. Spray calibrations, this is where you can verify the flow meter calibrations. Under there, they should have an accurate number in there, like around 570 is a pretty typical calibration number. It doesn't save in the simulator, but it will in real life. Pressure sensor calibration, recalibrate that with no pressure in the booms or solution system. Solution pump calibration, if you replace the solution pump, possibly you could do this, but it doesn't have to be done every year either. Controls, this is where you can map the hydro handle controls, which is the buttons on the back. Engine, not too much in there. HMS, headline management system, you can set up sequences for the HMS button on the hydro handle. Maintenance, this works great for storing your service intervals. Nozzle calculator, you can go through this to figure out which tips you could possibly use. Another good resource for picking spray nozzles is the Go Spray app. It's similar to this. And now we'll get through some of the more solution system stuff. So Put on the page is the rinse system. Give you some advice for rinsing of what all to rinse. So rinse type, you can pick your rinse type here. We have 4 options. Rinsing the boom only, which is what you should do every day with Exact-Apply machines. Solution system, which is the whole solution system. Solution tank only, and rinse tank transfer. Spray system, some pretty important setups, things in here to look at. So minimum spray pressure, this will vary with your nozzle bodies. So nozzle bodies on a standard system open at around 16 to 20 psi, which is where you would set this. It's the minimum pressure used during spraying. Spray off pressure is the pressure the solution pump runs at when you're not spraying. Pressure relief, having this toggle on. When you turn the solution pump off, you can press the master spray switch and it opens the suction valves to let the pressure back out of the booms. Flow rate mode is where we have our setup for the flow meters on the side fill. So low flow, standard flow, and high flow. And a handy feature in the Gen4 display is the recommendations calculator, where you can put in your speed and your rate. So see, we're spraying at 12 miles per hour. And our target rate is going to be 40 gallons. It will tell us where to set our flow meters. So in this case, high flow, flow meter open and orifice valve open. And also you can set your preset rates and your target pressure if you're going to use that. In the advanced settings, the only one I'll point out here is, well, 2 things in here. Rate control, display speed, GPS speed is definitely the most accurate, so you want to have that picked there. And spray system response at the bottom. If you have issues with the solution pump wandering and you've verified that your flow meter setup is correct, in here you could make it less aggressive or more aggressive. And lastly, tank system. You can set up the target fill through the display here. Refill the tank, and agitation, how aggressive it is, and deductor, how aggressive it is. Also, you can turn auto agitation shut off to on, and agitation will automatically turn off at whichever preset level you put in there. That's what I have for the Gen4 display. We'll look at the 2630 displays next. All right, I have the 2630 simulator started up here. We're simulating an R4030 sprayer. 30 series sprayer will be similar, and Haggis will be similar if they have a 2630 that you're using in the cab as well. Mostly just for the GS3 stuff again. So we'll go through the GS3 setup here. Under the equipment tab, verify that you have a machine model and that it has a name and offsets are in there. If you do have a Haggy, one thing that you want to double check is that it does populate as a front boom. In the simulator it shows up as a rear boom only, but if you have a Haggy, the picture should change to yellow and gray, and it should show a front boom here. If it does not do this, you can change the connection type to force it. If it's set up incorrectly, it'll mess with the section control on off. We should go through the boom tab as well. So implement model, you want to have it in there and have it named, and also have your widths and track spacing set up. Section control, on-off settings are here. We would have to name it first to set up on-off times. Resources is where you put in your client, farm, and field. And task, you do want to have something in here for it to map and section control to work. So post-emerge spraying and 2021 crop season. The document tab yet. You don't want to have a single product in. An important thing here with a sprayer is that you don't have multiple product tabs open. You should only be have one product tab open and product in here and named. We'll go back through the menu and go to the sprayer specific stuff now. So again, this is an R4030 that we're simulating. 30 series are somewhat similar through the display as well here. So under the setup tab, spray setup. This is where you can set up the orifice valve and high flow. If this were a high flow option, it would have a high flow option right here, which is for the high flow meter ball valve and also the orifice valve. When you adjust this on the side fill, you want to make sure that the display is set to what you have them set on the side. Minimum spray pressure is set here. Minimum spray pressure is the minimum pressure the pump will go to while spraying, so the pressure that the nozzle is open at, which is generally 15 to 20 psi. Spray off pressure is the pressure that the solution pump runs at when you're not spraying. Around 40 psi is a good number to run there. Spray system in max is how aggressive it responds to changes in rate. 3 is the middle. If you have issues with rate hunting, you can adjust this number, but normally try to make sure your orifice valve is adjusted first. Boom charge, there's 3 modes: off, manual, and auto. So boom charge is what it does when you come out of the headline and back into the field again. So in off, it will just try to grab the target rate, which does work the best around here. Manual, it will spray at the manual target pressure for the first 3 seconds, and auto, it will do exactly what it's doing on the last pass. Boom setup. In here is the maintenance mode, which you can go into to manually fold the booms if you have an issue with a boom sensor on a 4 series sprayer. And return to height. This uses the tilt sensors for a quick stop. Rate control and display speed. GPS speed is the most accurate. You want to have this selected. Under the calibrations tab, spray calibrations, where you check your flow meter cal. This is the same as in a 30 series sprayer. You want to have the number here what it says on the flow meter cal tab. Pressure sensor calibration. You would calibrate this if you replace a pressure sensor or if it does seem to be out. And solution pump calibration, as the pump gets worn or you replace the pump, you need to recalibrate the solution pump. Boom calibration. On our series, tilt valve cal is in the menu here. This is for the boom track valves. You want to calibrate with oil hot, over 140 degrees Fahrenheit. On a 30 series, it would have a boom track pro cal right side of the Vico calibration tab. And the Vico cal is speed sensor cal and auto track cal are the 2 that you should be recalibrating when you swap tires from skinnies to floaters. Under the Vico setup, the last one to point out here is the service hours. Some people aren't aware where to reset the service hours. It is right here on the last tab. And that is what I have for 2630 displays. Hopefully these videos are a good refresher. Again, make sure your software is up to date, and if you need a hand, feel free to give us a call. We're here to help you.